Before we dive into this video, I just want to give a quick shout out and a thank you to the good folks at ClearScope. They're now an official supporter and partner of SuperPath, which I'm really grateful for. I'm also really excited to bring SuperPath the knowledge, the expertise, and this great product that Bernard and his team have built. And as a special perk for SuperPath Slack members and email subscribers, if you DM Bernard or Shannon, who's the senior marketing manager at ClearScope in our Slack community, they'll send you a free keyword report. So just tell them a keyword that you're working on, something challenging, something competitive. Let them know what it is. They're going to send you a free keyword report. That way you actually get a bunch of really useful data that you can use in your content. And then you can also see what ClearScope is actually like. You don't need to log in. You don't need to create a password, none of that stuff. They're just going to send you a link. You'll be able to see it, get all the data. All that's free. Just DM him, either Bernard or Shannon in the Slack community to get that. We'll get on to the video. Thanks so much again to the good folks at ClearScope. Why don't we talk about content optimization?
Content optimization, right? Why this has become all the rage. This is a very important and interesting topic, right? I'm sure as you content writers, content managers out there, you've been getting these links to reports or briefs or whatever, doing like follow these instructions, score as an A++, right? Hit these target keywords. And a lot of you, I'm sure, have a lot of friction with that because it limits your creative sort of writing skills and kind of feels like it might be caging you in. Well, this section is designed to help introduce you to why this has been happening more at a technical level, and also to explain that these tools aren't here to harm your creative process, but you should more think of them as, say, a color palette of recommendations that you should likely weave into your painting. Should you be painting a picture on getting rid of pimples or say A/B testing or email marketing software? But first, to illustrate then where we're coming from, let's first bring up a quick little slide deck that I have prepared right here. So SEO is a complex subject in marketing where a lot of people have no idea what's going on. I would say in the past, a lot of people would simply focus on these top two considerations, right? You have technical SEM, which is, okay, are your header tags and your site architecture, is it smooth? And you have relevant backlinks. And that was, for the most part, it, right? If you pumped your site with a bunch of backlinks and made sure that your technical SEO was correct and you selected the right keyword, it would rank. And that's what worked, I would say, all the way up until around 2013, when Google really started to change how their algorithm works. From there, we had this concept of subject matter authority and user engagement signal really start to enter the mix. And this is why content optimization has become more important. I have a screenshot. This is the classical webmaster tools. So Google has since upgraded it to Google Search Console, but I use this screenshot because it does such a good job illustrating how this whole Google algorithm process works. You can see here, right, if you like tilt your head, it says Google accesses your content, it's in silver, right? That's like the technical SEO. And technical SEO literally just helps Google access, crawl, and understand your content, right? If you had zero technical SEO debt, you could think of it as a completely blank web page that loads really quickly. Well, that alone is not going to do anything. And that's why you have these things that help Google determine where your content is initially going to rank. This is going to be your backlinks or domain authority, and then this yellow is going to be your subject matter authority, or how your existing content for that particular subject has done. So we run a variety of our own websites to validate and invalidate different assumptions that we have, given that SEO is a constantly evolving channel. And this one in particular, we designed a piece of content to talk about design packaging ideas and other things. And Google's going to take that, and you see it here, initially seed us in the Google search results, I think around position 25. And that's based on, well, our existing domain authority and how we've covered different topics surrounding this. But you can see here, right, that this green bar and this blue bar, which is user engagement signal, and what a search query actually deserves is ultimately what ends up having us rank, or you can see in this particular case, having us not rank. So Google's saying, okay, I'm going to give a few legitimate impressions. I think this is 3, and serve this to a logged in user as position 25. And then we get no clicks. And then they say, okay, maybe that was just variance. We're not going to do that. Here's like 1 more impression, no clicks. Here's 3 more, here's 4 more, here's 3 more, here's 2 more. And you can see over time, nobody's really clicking or engaging with our piece of content. And therefore, our piece of content drops off the Google search results page. So content optimization then is all the rage because it's doing its best to give the writer all of the tools necessary to have the best ability of concluding a search journey. ClearScope was then born about 5 years ago, where we saw content quality becoming a much more important factor in what determines what ranks and doesn't rank. As an example, then, we'll just use what I have preloaded here. What is a credit score? ClearScope, what it does when you run a ClearScope report is that we go and we scrape the top ranking Google search results for this particular query. So we'll go here, go to Google and say, all right, well, what is ranking for what is a credit score? We'll then dive into the top 30 ranking pieces of content, and we'll do our best to throw out noise elements like nav bars, sidebars, and footers. So taking what we believe to be body of content, something like this, we'll then run this content through a couple of the industry leaders in natural language processing. So first, you're going to have Google Cloud Natural Language. The reason why this is of utmost importance, and we'll come back to this in just a second, is that Google will say, look, this is the same machine learning technology that powers Google search. Naturally, then, make a lot of sense to pop in the top ranking content and see what Google is understanding as the entities or concepts being used to describe this particular concept. So you see here, Google will say, look, I think it's talking about credit score, borrower repayment history, which is a pretty good representation of what this as a topic is about. At the same time, we use the other industry leader in natural language processing. This would be IBM Watson to do exactly the same thing. Then do the same thing across the top 30 results and package all of this into a nice text editor experience, which has become known as content optimization. When we first got started, nobody really knew what this thing was called. Maybe it was like topical entity optimization, but that just sounded too esoteric. So we were calling this content optimization. Really easy, right? You just draft inside these tools or ClearScope, and they're going to go through and score your content on comprehensiveness. And you'll notice a list of terms over here on the right. These all allude to what should be discussed to craft the most comprehensive piece of content that should exist. Now, back to this idea, right, of user engagement signal. If someone performed a search for what is a credit score, but you didn't necessarily talk about Equifax, well, the user is much more likely to say, go back to Google and maybe click on another result. If that were to happen, you can imagine that, and then the user finds what they're looking for here. If that were to happen, you can imagine that Google's going to take a look at this and say, okay, well, maybe the next time I service this search results page, I'm going to take this result and put it above that result because I'm not seeing that the user is doing a good job. Well, the content is doing a good job answering the needs of the searcher. So content optimization allows writers to comprehensively craft the most relevant and engaging piece of content that will prevent the user from going back, clicking on another result, or you can imagine performing an additional search. If that were to happen, then you might get penalized and your rankings might go down, which is to say that content writing, content strategy is even more important than it's ever been. And we're very excited to live in a world where we're helping content creators craft the most compelling pieces of content possible. That said, I'm going to be pretty biased, right? When it comes to the recommendations that we're giving, I'm going to say that ClearScope's recommendation list is going to be the best, because we've done a lot of work to make sure that the recommendations that you're getting back are going to be the highest signal possible. So this is what we pride ourselves on, is the ease of what you're looking at and the quality of the recommendations that you're getting back. To put it all together, let's just copy and paste in the Investopedia piece of content right here, like that. And then ClearScope will say, yep, this is B+. And then you can see contextually what you're missing, all of this different stuff right here, which then allows you to, again, build the best piece of content out there that covers this particular subject matter.
Can I ask you like a workflow question? Where do you recommend that content teams, at what point in the workflow should they do this? Like, do you recommend that they go through whatever process they do in Google Docs and editing and revision, and then paste it into ClearScope, right before publishing, just to do a quick check? Or do you recommend that they start earlier in the editorial process?
So we've seen people weave ClearScope in wherever they feel comfortable weaving ClearScope in. And we do have some integrations to help bring ClearScope to a lot of the different ecosystems that people are already familiar with, right?
Oh,
a lot of
nice.
people collaborate in Google Docs or in WordPress. So if you wanted to just use ClearScope inside Google Docs, you absolutely can.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Exactly the same recommendations there.
Got it.
So
then that could be like a live, assuming a team uses Google Docs for their content production, this would be a live kind of ticker on how the piece is coming together as they write it.
That's right. You got it.
That's cool.
So what we found, right, speaking from experience, is that, again, you get some pushback from your writers because they were left to independently do whatever they wanted to do in the past. Right. And putting this style of, say, cage on them oftentimes feels like you're repressing them, or that I, as a content writer, am repressed. However, right, we've seen then over time that people actually start to really like using this, because again, we don't view this as like saying, oh, slapping you on the wrist, you've done a poor job. But we view this as like the core concepts. Like, look, this piece of content doesn't talk about Vantage Score. And you can see, clicking on the examples, contextually how other top results have mentioned this. So it's not like these recommendations are coming out of the blue, right? We're giving you the context of why this appears to be important. And then you can see across the top 30 results that a lot of people do happen to be using this. And then it kind of is like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And you could sort it by heading presence, which gives you some insights into ideas that people are using in terms of different sections or H1s, H2s for these particular topics. So it can help you figure that out. You can see here, got an outline generator in beta, which uses GPT.
Oh, no way.
Some fancy new technology.
Cool.
And what we'll do is we'll just look at people also ask in Google, and we'll look at competitive landscapes, and we'll generate you this outline, right? That'll say, look, if you want to write a piece of content on what is a credit score, you should probably talk about, what is the meaning of credit score, or what is a good FICO score, or does the credit score impact credit cards that you qualify for? Also give you some sections that you can consider within your piece of content, and then some external links or citations to back up some of the claims that you're making. So back to answering your question in terms of workflow, you could totally just start here, right? And say, okay, I'm gonna build the content outline and then pass this on to a writer, in which case we have this shareable ClearScope report, which allows people to assign these out to writers as assignments. So a lot of people will just link this out in an Upwork chat room or an email and be like, here you go, right? Use this. And then when I get the piece of content back, I, as the managing editor, can rest assured that the piece of content is at least covering the subject matter comprehensively.
Right. That's interesting. I can understand how like creative folks, they don't necessarily like to be given more constraints than they've already have to deal with. But at the same time, like if you're a content creator and you sit down to write a piece, you probably have a couple things in front of you already. You probably have an assignment, or a pitch. Maybe you've got an outline or a brief. Maybe you have a style guide or a voice and tone guide or something like that. Like, and those are all just things that kind of keep you in the kind of they're bumpers on your lane. You know, they sort of keep you heading in the right direction. This feels like such a nice addition to that, because so much about writing is subjective. To have just one objective way to measure the strength of your writing for the ultimate goal that is designed to serve anyways seems like a real bonus.
Yeah, yeah, that is what we've seen, and looks like Google likes this as well. So we've seen a lot of pretty nice results from our clientele, especially those without that much authority, which is just sort of how search is working, which I
Right.
think in a lot of ways is great, right? As the end consumer of Google content, I would like my answers faster and more comprehensive.
Right. Right. This
Different searches deserve different content experiences, right? I think that that's been known, but not completely known. And Google has introduced sort of this knowledge graph check, evaluate your content comprehensiveness. And content optimization tools like ClearScope are just ensuring that your content is covering the subject matter well. You have like a webinar right here that is the full presentation of what we were looking at in terms of the slide deck. And then you can find a copy of that slide deck right there. Now, moving.
Just a quick reminder that if you'd like to get a free keyword report from the folks at ClearScope, just send a DM to either Bernard or Shannon in the SuperPath Slack community. Tell them a keyword that you're working on. They're going to send you a link to a ClearScope keyword report. It's going to include a bunch of really useful data that you can use in your content efforts, and you'll get a free look at the actual tool ClearScope in action. So go check that out. Thanks so much again to the good folks at ClearScope for supporting SuperPath. We really appreciate it.